Hey, Wire Monkeys, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Cabling. On this episode, we're going to talk about a Bixie event that you better want to see this. Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by installers, estimators, project managers, ICT personnel, and even customers. We are connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be noticed when new content is being produced? If you're listening to us on one of the audio podcast platforms like Google or Apple or Stitcher or all those, would you mind leaving us a 5-star rating? Those simple little steps helps us take on the algorithm, which helps us educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of people in the ICT industry. Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? I do a live stream on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere, where you get to ask your favorite RCDD, you know that's me, your questions about installation, certification, design, estimation, project management, even career path questions. But I can hear now, Chuck, I'm driving my truck at 6 p.m. on Thursday. I don't want to get into an accident. I got you covered. They're recorded, and you can find them on letstalkcabling.com. And finally, while this show is free and will always remain free, if you find value in this content, there are ways that you can support this show. You can become a Patreon member, or you click on this little QR code right here, or you can support us other ways as well. So as I mentioned, there's a Bixie event coming up that always catches my eye when anything ever happens in Costa Rica, because I have ties to Costa Rica, and I'll maybe explain that later on in the episode. But that's not why this one caught my eye. This one caught my eye because it has some powerhouse people talking at it. And those powerhouse people are going to be Everette Oliver, RCDD, DCDC, ESS, Lisa Schwartz'a, Betty Bezos, PE, PM, RCDD, ESS, OSP, DCDC, right? And Miguel Ochoa, I think that's how he says his last name. Did I get that right, Miguel? Ochoa, okay. And then also finally one other person, I forgot to put their name down in my notes. Maybe they can tell me who it is. They're going to be talking about the ICT evolution in the smart building industry. So we're going to talk about that episode. And here's the thing. It's tomorrow. so you're going to have to make sure you sign up for it. And we'll have to ask about if it's going to be recorded or not. So welcome to the show, Lisa, Miguel, Carol, and Betty. How you guys doing tonight?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Great. Very nice.
So we have a couple repeat people on the customer on here. Lisa's been on the show before, right? And Miguel, actually, no, Miguel, you haven't been on the show. I met you at the Bixie conference. That's why you, and that's why you're wearing the Wire Monkey
That's
shirt. Way to
That's
show the
right.
brand.
I'm a fan.
Carol's been on the show. There you go. Carol's been on the show a couple of times, and first timer on the show, Betty. Betty's on the show. All right, very good. So let's talk about this event. It's a Bixie. It's a 1 hour event, if I remember right. Right, 1 hour event, and it's going to be for the Latin America market. Is it going to be recorded and broadcast globally?
Well, Chuck, this event is actually being produced and promoted by a company in Panama. This company is Latam Red. Latam Red is a company that has been doing some Bixie indoors events in the past. This webinar is actually supporting the next ICT forum that we are promoting in Costa Rica. This event is going to be held on November 8th. So we planned this webinar prior to the event, and it actually involves the smart building industry and the ICT side of it. Okay, so we are bringing this interesting subject for Latin America, but it's actually going to be in English because of Carol, Betty, Lisa, and Martha that couldn't be here today. But it is actually going to be in English, so every North American, South American, Central America can enjoy the the content. Okay, so the idea is to promote education, promote this specialized subject, and it is actually supported by the TIA. Okay, it is actually being sponsored by the TIA because of this relationship we've been developing with the Smart Building work group from the TIA. So this is bringing a lot of content from every maybe different point of view, as a Carol from the cabling perspective, Betty is adding her experience from the application side, and Marta is also bringing some of the insights about the qualification, okay, of what is a smart building actually, and what is smart and what is not smart. Okay, Lisa is also helping us with as an introduction and managing all the Q&A. So she's also bringing her huge experience about cable testing, and we're pretty excited about it. Okay.
I am too, because you've got some heavy hitters.
Right.
The only one I didn't know is Marta. I knew everybody else, although, I mean, I've known of Betty for years, but I've never physically. Actually, did we meet at a Pixie conference? Yeah, I thought we did. I thought we did. I thought we did.
You gave me this.
I got so many people coming up to me, sometimes I forget who I've actually met and who I haven't met. So.
We talked for a little bit. Yes.
So let's just go around the room. Carol, first question is it's you, okay? Can you just kind of give us an overview? What the heck, for those who may not know, what is smart building technology?
Okay, so what I'm going to be discussing is how to design and how to install smart building infrastructure. So the difference between smart building and traditional buildings, right, is that traditional buildings, you have disparate applications. You also have unique cabling and operating systems and everything like that. With a smart building, you're looking at integrating these applications onto one IP network. So how does that happen? And the biggest difficulty, we were talking about this earlier, this group, is somebody going to say, hey, do I need to rip and replace all my existing cable? And actually, you don't if you can test it and make sure that you have the headroom. But I'm going to go over some of the standards that help the installers as well as obviously the network designers, figure out how do I make my building smart? Right now, it's not smart. It's traditional. I have all these different systems. Well, so what are your goals and objectives, and what kind of cabling would you need to put in its place? And it's not going to be, like I said, it's not going to be a big rip and replace, but you might want to do it in sections depending on what the needs are for those specific applications. So that's what I'm going to be addressing, which is right in my wheelhouse because I've given presentations and webinars and
written articles
presentations. Articles, I've written articles. Yeah.
What?
So basically, where are we at? Because we've been talking smart buildings for years.
Right.
So what are we bringing to this webinar that's going to be different than any webinar you've seen? And I think that the audience will be really thrilled to hear, moving on to the next step.
Right. Yeah, one of my favorite articles that you wrote is "The Cat is Out of the Bag." And
it's an old one.
It is an old one. It is absolutely an old one, but it's still relevant today. Because I get people to this day, they still ask me, well, what's Cat 5? What's Cat 5e? What's Cat 6?
Yeah.
What's the history? I still get that question. And rather than sit down and explaining everything, I go, here's the link. Dink.
I know it's still on the internet. You can still access that, But I think what people are now concerned with, because of course you're putting power over the same cabling that you had data, back then. I mean that CAT article really dealt with just data. It didn't deal with power over Ethernet. Right. So this is a whole new ballgame.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it covered the history too. Kind of covered the history going from the Plano telephone service.
I had great quotes from people from Nevada Western and those guys that were way in the historical books of
easy now. I'm one of them old guys. Careful now. I started in 1982, starting off pulling IBM Type 1, and I've even done Category 4 cabling. I'm one of the few
Oh,
people who've
what,
done
for
it.
2 weeks?
2 weeks,
For 2
all
weeks?
2 weeks. It was one project. So Betty, what are you talking about at that conference?
Well, I'm talking about legacy, how to bring in, because that's what we encounter in every building. We have all these old legacy protocols running, and how do we integrate them? And also, we talk about some open architecture. We talk about lawn talk. We talk about Modbus, a little bit on the protocol side, and that's and the fact that you need to integrate this older connectivity into the new world. Um, that's what has been my task lately as a I call myself solutions manager because clients come in and say, okay, how can I make this building intelligent or smart? And it's like, well, you don't do that overnight. And I mentioned this in our earlier meeting and said, how deep is your pocket? Because that's pretty much, I mean, yeah. And what is your key concern? Is it security? Is it the sustainability part of controlling your AC and your light? Something that I've been doing some research for a client is how the lights can really modify the environment for school children, ADHD students, in hospitals where you can modify. I think that is so awesome that we can use technology to bring down and calm down an individual and not trigger them. I think that's something that makes us very useful in the whole context of humanity. I think that so doing that research, I was really really impressed. So I'm more into the protocol side, what runs inside Carol's cabling and infrastructure.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how much light actually plays in emotion. That there's a reason that they choose specific color lights for different types of venues. Like for example, blue is a calming color, and when I say blue, I don't mean it's like over. It's not predominantly blue where you walk in, everything's blue. I mean it's just a real small little tinge. My wife's a color expert because she's a photographer. If we'll be watching a movie, she'll say, "Oh, the green's off." I'm like, "It looks fine to me," but there are certain colors they will choose to help promote a mood or help reduce negative effects. And a lot of people don't realize that. So
Walk into a store and you see what they're selling, and they just
yes,
walk you through with the use of colors and lights, and they entice you to buy me, and you think that the stuff is calling you. No, it's just the whole ambiance that they have created. Yes.
they're playing psychological tricks on you is what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm easy on that, on the spending money part. So,
Lisa, so what's your role again in the event?
So I am the moderator of the event. So just kind of help keep the event going and so forth. And then in the end, we all participate in the Q&A. So I'm overseeing that.
I couldn't think of a better person to moderate it. Actually, are you going to talk anything about testing by any chance? I mean, you do work for AEM.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
working it in.
No,
I'm working
Lisa
it in.
brought up a great point. Yeah, today we had a dry run, and it really kind of comes down to testing.
yes, yes.
So let me. I'll put this question out to the group. Whoever wants to answer it can answer it. What are some of the key technology driving advancements in smart building ICT infrastructure?
For me, it's security.
That's
Yeah,
a big one in
that's
today's
part.
That's a
environment.
really big one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And then
I think for me, it's control and managing of these systems. Trying from a different location, right? So you're not on site all the time. You're not physically there, but you can actually control it through the network.
mhm. And I'd say another one that we hear quite a bit with the clients and so forth that we talk to is the initiatives of trying to bring operational technology and information technology, bringing those what are typically disparate groups, oftentimes at an impasse, but bringing them together. Not only on the same infrastructure, but it also helps them to see, understand, and solve problems together.
One of the big things over the last few years is Internet of Things, right? All these internet devices. You don't realize how many things are driven off of the internet until you do like
So
you
true.
take your AEM tester and put it on the network to see what devices are hanging off of it. and you realize, because you think, oh, it's just my computer and my wife's computer. No, it's the thermostat, it's y'all's computers, it's the security cameras you got hanging everywhere. There's a lot of devices, right? So
The
with the Internet of,
refrigerator,
huh?
everything. The
Yeah.
refrigerator telling you that you should change your filter. I just got a message from my refrigerator
I
as
saw I
I
saw an
was getting.
advertisement for a washing machine that uses AI. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't want I've already got my wife telling me what to do. I don't want the washing machine telling me what to do as well. Okay, I've already, I get
It's an
frustrated with that
exciting
sometimes.
world. What can I say? It's like
Yes,
But
yes,
so true though, with so many devices, especially being powered by PoE. There's a slide that we present in one of our presentations, and in a very small footprint, there were, gosh, I think almost 900 devices using PoE, and it was everything from monitors to sensors to, of course, cameras, access points. You don't really realize how much all that adds up.
right. Yeah, because not everything's a 90-watt PoE device, right? Especially start talking in some of your smaller sensors. Some things draw very little energy, but the problem is if you don't know how many of them are on that network, they can add up on you really quickly. And
Exactly.
I love the fact that Carol said about using old cabling. I get that. That's the age-old question in the cable industry. Can I use my old cable over again? And the standard response has always been no, right? Because we're worried about new data and stuff like that. But with smart building stuff, because it's just kind of coming online, it's not running at Cat 5e speeds or Cat 6 or Cat 6. Well, usually not, but most of the time it's going to be some kind of an access control device or some type of a sensor that's going to be drawing very little data and very little energy.
Right.
So what are some of the challenges, Carol, of if someone decides they want to use their existing cable plant? What are some hurdles that they're going to have to clear?
So I mentioned earlier they'd have to again, this is where Lisa comes in, where you have to test the cable to see what kind of headroom you have, how much bandwidth, how much availability in power, what are you running? Like you say, access control, that's very, very small. But maybe a high definition security system, that could be using not only a lot of bandwidth, but also it could be using a lot of power, especially if you got your pan tilt zoom, things like that. So you really have to know and retest your cabling plan, even though you've tested it before, right? You probably tested it to get that warranty and you see what you have for headroom. But you really need to do it in a real life scenario. Go back and look at what that cabling can do or can't do.
Right. Miguel, I got a question for you. Um, can you provide us some examples of some ICT solutions that can help maybe enhance the energy solutions for smart building?
Well, I think an easy one is PoE lighting. These technologies have been evolving these past few years. Right, maybe 10 or 5 years ago, we had these proprietary lighting control systems that you can monitor from their central or their servers or their control panels. But right now, we have technology that has been able to integrate the fixtures to the structural cabling. And it is much easier to deploy this kind of project. And it's bringing more like management solutions, more control, more flexibility to, the max for movement and changes. And I think that is it has been a big improvement and an important addition from this regular commercial technology that is a lighting system into the smart building or their networking the converged system from a smart building.
So let me ask you guys this: who's my 5G expert here?
4G,
No,
4G.
I didn't mean to do that.
So how is 5G going to impact the connectivity and the communications with smart buildings?
Who wants to answer that? I'm trying to figure out where that's going.
go ahead, Miguel
the
Angel. I'll fill in. Yeah.
Uh,
yeah. Go ahead, Ben.
well, I think that the 5G is bringing more devices connected to the current network. So it will help to expand the coverage of every sensor technology, every integration of any devices or more devices into the smart building. Actually, maybe 5G is more like a concept for smart cities, maybe, where you have maybe these smart poles, surveillance around the building, perimeter security, and with this with the 5G technologies, you will be like extend the reach of your network from extended distances, maybe from private networks, a 5G private network, and it will be like easier to integrate into the smart building as a whole.
Yeah, I was going to say a smart campus, really, because my recent experience has been on a possible project that is going to integrate the 5G into an extension to an airport. And then it will be on the parking area, on the security, even on the runway area. So I think that's where the 5G will really bring in. The fact that it needs more antennas in close proximity is a challenge for us, especially in those open spaces that we cannot have antennas. So right now we're having that conversation also. But certainly for me, it's more on the outside of the building. That's a very good question. I have never thought about integrating inside per se. We want to sell those cables,
That's what happens when you let AI write your show questions for you.
Did you really?
I did. I did because Miguel got hung up in meetings, so him and I didn't really get a chance to talk about the questions. So I went to ChatGPT, said, give me 10
Oh
questions
no!
on ICT evolution and smart building applications, and bam, there we go. That's
Yeah, very good questions, Chat.
Good questions.
Yeah, being a writer though, that's the Chat GPT is like my enemy.
no, I get you, and I don't like using it typically for questions, but I didn't see Miguel's notification until like 4:30 or something like that. I'm like, wait a minute, the show's in 30 minutes. So hey, it's called adapting and overcoming is what
There
it's
you
called
go.
actually.
There you go.
So I'm going to ask each of you guys. I want you guys to answer this question in your expertise, right? So what challenges do you anticipate when it comes to scaling the ICT cable plant for smart building? So we'll start off with Lisa first.
So I'd say one of the biggest challenges I think that we are seeing is just education for the contractors, installers to understand that there are actually additional test parameters defined in the 568 standard that are additional or optional test parameters. They're not part of your regular test setup, and they have to just be turned on. And those parameters are pretty critical, especially if you're deploying things like digital lighting. Betty, I know you guys are doing a lot with that. And some of these applications so that you can test the capacity of that wire more than your typical certification measurements. And then for us, with our equipment being very purpose-built for smart buildings, aside from your certification testing with those extra parameters, there are things that test like signal to noise ratio, where we're, especially in the case of cable reuse actually. This is a really big one. There's a lot of Cat 5e out there. And to be able to push traffic on the wire and at the same time request power load, so you're testing the wire in as much of a real world situation as possible to make sure it can support your intended application if you're thinking of upgrading. So I'd say the biggest challenge I see is just educating the contractor market on all of these different things that you should be testing, one, and two, use it as an advantage to add new service offering. Charge for these services. I mean, jump on the bandwagon of it and take advantage of it to make more money.
Yeah, it's not just the additional tests. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought up the educating the contract. That's because my day job. That's what I do,
Right.
and I get that question a lot. And what people don't understand is it's the bigger thing is it's not just the test that you got to turn on, but it's also the procedures. Because when you're testing an NPTL, that's
Oh,
different than when you're testing a
totally
regular
different
permanent link.
procedure.
That's a
Yep.
that's a whole different show. That's a whole different show.
That's
We won't
a
even touch that
show
one
in
here
and of
right now.
itself. Yep.
That's a 30-minute show just by itself.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So Miguel, what challenges do you anticipate?
Well, I think that the customer expectation is also very very important to to bring it over to the table, because it happens just similar to a data center. Okay, as how reliable do you want your data center, and how much are you able to spend on it? Okay, so data center is it's a whole different thing about certification and compliance, but smart building is more like a one-on-one project with the owner, the stakeholder, because it is like a boutique, a personal a personal project, because some feature, for example, those hospitality is very particular. So I think overlapping the customer expectation and the capacity of the technology that he is able to afford to pay, that's a challenge for companies such as integrators or designers or installers. Okay.
Very good. Carol, you're the cable guru here. What challenges do you anticipate for the ICT installers?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is trying to figure out how to future proof, Okay, I've got a category 5E and I want to add, an access control, which is a big card reader, let's say. Well, that's easy, right? I mean, your existing cable should do that. But down the road, you've got these wireless access points, or you've got these, extended distance WAPs, out in the football field or somewhere. How are you going to know that your cabling infrastructure today is going to be able to be there for tomorrow's applications? Nobody has a crystal ball. So, we don't even know what applications are coming down the road. So just knowing, like going back to, Lisa, and understanding how much headroom you have in that cable. And then also, I think another challenge is, here these guys are going to, well, Jesus, where do I find the information? Again, education. I'll talk about a lot of standards that are out there, not just TIA and Dixie, but there's other standards. And oh my gosh, is this, what about codes? Because you're dealing with power going over the cable as well. So those are some of the things that are just a constant evolution, and they just have to stay on top of the education.
Yeah, just this last weekend, or technically it was Saturday, I attended a thing called Tech's Giving. There's a group called Tech Knowledge Worldwide, and once a year they pick a recipient, and then they'll go to that recipient's business and they'll put in a fully functioning data system, video, access control, whatever. This year was Mission Fit. They do. It's a gym that helps at-risk youth in Baltimore. So I went up there Saturday. I only got to spend 6 hours there, but and one of the things that they're doing is they're doing a lot of access control stuff. And you're right. It's Cat 5e today, but we don't know what those devices are going to need tomorrow. It's funny because as I was sitting, because you mentioned it, I'm sitting there, I was talking to one of my Patreon members happened to be there. So he had a bunch of questions for me, and him and I talking, and they're doing some cabling right above our heads, doing a bundle of cabling. They go, "Hey Chuck, what's the bundle size for PoE?" And I said, "Well, you want the code answer? Do you want the standards answer, or do you want the Bixby best practice answer? Because those are three different answers, right?"
True.
So do you want to be the good contractor, the better contractor, or the best contractor? And I said, if you want, and they said, well, we want to be the best. Look, of course you do. I said, 24. Don't do more than 24. Because the code book allows you to have, well, it depends on how many amps you're putting across it, but there's a chart in the code book that allows you to have a whole bunch in there. And it's like, just follow the best practice standard, because you don't know what kind of current they're going to be putting across that cable tomorrow. You don't know, what kind of data they're going to be putting across that tomorrow. So, and future proofing it's unfortunately, on the younger generation, it's not a concept they're ready to embrace yet. But if you've been a project manager or an estimator or in sales in this industry, future proofing is big. It is absolutely big. So Betty, what are some challenges you anticipate for your portion of this?
My challenges, not related to the protocols, because that's a very dry subject that sometimes people are not really interested in. But from a practical standpoint, I think that pathways is a huge problem because now we have more points out in the field that we need to cable. There might be no existing cable for those new points. So we need to open up the ceiling tiles, open up areas and see where are we going to run that new pathway. And also the big misnomer that I find is that they think that, oh, the telecommunications room now can be smaller. I don't know where they get that one, but I get that a lot. Yeah. And it's like, well, not really. Actually, probably a little bit larger because now you have the power, you have other issues too. So that has been a challenge recently. And oh, so you don't need that TR that large anymore. Or since everything is wireless, you don't need the pathways.
Well, yeah, wireless. It doesn't need wire. That's why they call it
A
wireless.
lot of wired wires.
Yeah, you don't need
Yeah.
the wire, right?
Yeah, you don't need the wires.
I have that conversation a lot, a lot. So I already kind of halfway mentioned that I used AI to help me with these questions for this show. AI seems to be getting into everything and impact everything from writing codes to computers to questions for podcasts to even descriptions on shows and stuff like that. Let's start this off with you, Betty, since you're more on the equipment side, right? How do you see AI impacting you?
Facilitating analytics. I think that that's going to be huge, and because right now we are back to our little Excel tables and things, and I think that AI can really make it a lot easier and faster to analyze data and data at the instant rather than a batch job or something else. That's what we're used to, and especially through a VPN, you can do it remotely. So I think the analysis of data is going to be huge from that standpoint.
Gotcha. Now I know AI is your arch enemy, Carol. I know it's your arch enemy.
Well, only Chat GPT. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
mind AI,
Yeah.
but Chat GPT, don't use that to write an article. Because you know what it does? It just pulls information off the internet, and that's usually old information.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. You got to go back and reread it, but and you'll never get AI to pull terminate or test cable, right?
Right.
You're always going to need a
Right.
body to do that.
Yeah.
Do you think, or how do you think AI will impact the low voltage cabling side of this?
That's an interesting question. I mean, there's so many ways it's going to affect the low voltage side. I think that one of the topics that we haven't even touched on is the relationship between low voltage and the electricians, and AI could actually bridge that gap.
Yeah, I was at the NICA show in Philly,
Yeah.
and they brought me in because my day job is really known as an electrical device manufacturer. I mean, they do voice and data as well, but they're really known for electrical stuff. So I got invited to go to to talk about the network part of everything there, and I was like, why am I going to Electrical Contractors Association? I'm a low volt guy. Why are they sending me to this? And you know what? There was a lot of low voltage presence there, from people selling products to test manufacturers to tools to everything. Those two worlds they've always been close to each other, but now they're starting to overlap. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to say Carol said that AI was going to help us get along with electricians better. I'm quoting you on that for now.
Okay. Okay.
Lisa,
I'll
AI
take
and
that challenge.
testing.
And as you asked that question, I thought, okay, he's going to come around to me. What are my thoughts on this? I have never considered that. But as everyone was talking, I was thinking about it a little bit, and the only thing I can kind of see right now, and this would really be scary if we got to this, is if people used AI to, kind of design, architect, scope their project, and purely relied on that, and or even asking questions. I have a XYZ cable. Can it support IoT devices? And it comes back and says, oh yes, it can support devices. And they forego testing. Who knows if a mouse has been chewing on that piece of cable? Over time, cable degrades.
Yes.
So I think that'd probably be the thing that I would think about from the testing perspective is if people take what that says, that what that comes back with, and they start to forego testing. Because so much
Right.
can happen with the cable over time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Because I
a
get
good
asked this,
question.
I get asked the AI question quite often, and that's why I preface it with Carol is you'll never get AI to pull, terminate, and test a cable.
Yeah,
But from my point of view, AI is going to help the project manager who's trying to analyze all those data inputs, whether or not his project's on budget or not. AI is going to help the estimator who's trying to estimate a project, maybe help them, pick the right piece of equipment or help write the scope of work and stuff like that. I see it helping the back office side, but I don't really see it helping the construction portion of it.
yeah.
Though I could be wrong.
Still
I,
hands
I've
on.
been,
I mean, it's got
yeah.
to still be very hands on.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been wrong before, so it'd be interesting to see if I'm wrong this time. Right, Miguel, what are you? What's your thoughts on that on AI and smart building?
Well, I think that the most related part or importance of AI is going to be the management part. I mean, we already have monitor and some interactions between those systems and the management. Okay, so AI will improve that management, and it will allow to take more, maybe more precise decisions about certain conditions. For example, lighting and power and energy management to make more sustainable and more or less power consuming building per se. Okay, so I think it will be more from the improve the management side of this already monitor
Gotcha,
systems.
gotcha. Two more questions. Two more questions. So, as you know, my show's geared towards the young professionals, people who are trying to become better at their jobs, maybe try to get in this industry. That's the whole reason I do this show, right? So I'm gonna go around the room. We'll start off with you, Carol. What advice would you give that young professional who's looking to get in the ICT industry with the context of smart buildings?
I would tell them like I tell, even us old guys, go to the conference, talk to the vendors, get the education, attend the webinars, get as much information as you can because it just is constantly evolving. You can't keep up with it. And these kids, they're like sponges. I want to call them kids, but emerging professionals, and they soak it in. And then, they actually will evolve applications and find a better way to do it, to connect their devices. So I think that just understanding what's required and then going forward and being able to design the system and obviously install it as well. So
Gotcha.
just education.
Betty, what advice would you give that young professional?
Oh, get a good mentor. I think that that's what really, really has made a difference in my life from day one. Or mentors, because you can be very different ones as you go through life. But I think it's very important because you
Yeah.
have all the information in the books, in the classes. That's all very important. But that human connection with somebody that been there, done that, yes.
Absolutely. Lisa, what advice would you give them?
Well, Carol and Betty gave amazing answers. I mean, it's going to be hard to add to that. I think I would probably just echo the education and education from a lot of different sources. One of the things that I've always been attuned to throughout my career in the ICT industry is find others just like you and communicate with others just like you. So, there's a few different podcasts. Your show is fantastic. We also have a podcast show, Tech Talk with Steve. Steve, sorry, but Steve's been at this for a little over 30 years. So he's got some fantastic tips and tricks. And then to echo about the vendors, talk to a lot of the different cable and connector manufacturers, test equipment vendors. Get perspectives from more than just one source.
Oh, that's great advice right there. Great advice. Because always evaluate your resource. It doesn't necessarily mean that advice from somebody's bad or wrong, but it could be dated. It could be somebody's like an old Ma Bell guy says, "What? What's this power of reading that stuff? What? No, that's never gonna. Cat 3 is gonna be around forever." You know. So you,
Just
so
like
you,
Cat 4.
exactly, exactly. Miguel, what advice would you give to that young professional looking to get into this field with their eye on smart buildings?
They took all the ideas. I have
Okay,
none.
okay. Well, here's what we'll do then. I'll give you the last question. I'm going to give you first shot at it. So that way you
All
there you
right,
go.
all right,
So as you know,
all right. No, no,
I'm an
but
RCDD, right?
but
And that's a
all
major
right.
part of my audience. What role do you see the RCDD having in this integration of ICT and smart buildings?
I think it's one of the most important. Is a key factor designing this system because it is actually one of the topics of the webinar. I mean the infrastructure, the connectivity, the cabling is like the bones of the neural system of the smart building. So it is so important to have a well designed and then a well installed, tested, and all the step forward for this system to work reliable and to work accordingly to the every technology that you're integrating in there. So the RCDDs are a key part of the first steps of designing the infrastructure of for the smart buildings.
Excellent answer. Excellent answer. Carol, I think I know what your answer is going to be because you're the cable person here. What role is the RCD going to have with integration of ICT and smart buildings?
Well, I will have to echo Miguel because that's exactly right. They're the ones that are designing the system. They're the ones that know how to test the system. They're the ones that know project managers, or they should. They're the ones who also have educated in commissioning the systems. So I think that it's just having your RCDD, you're supposed to know all of this and be able to say, yes, this system, I'm going to put my stamp on it because this system is going to work now and hopefully in the future. So, with an RCDD, they should know all aspects of the design and installation.
Excellent answer. This is the person I've been waiting to ask this question to. Ever since I saw this question 20 minutes ago, I was like, I can't wait to hear Betty's response on this because she's the systems person, right?
Yeah,
What role does
but
the RCD going to have, especially with the systems in the ICT and smart buildings?
a huge impact. But I think that without technicians, the RCDD is nothing. Because I can put things on paper all day long, and if I don't have that communication with the installation team, with the technicians, it will still be on paper, guys. So my hats off for you that have the RCDD and the tech, because I think that's an awesome combination. And I've been lucky through all my years that I have partnered with individuals that started as installers and became techs, and we can share. I can share from my designer standpoint, from my PM expertise, but without the other side, I would be nothing, guys. Yeah. Oh, I would be just four letters. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. The Achilles heel of our industry. We work in the communications industry. What do we suck at? I'll let you answer that yourself, right?
Yeah.
Lisa, what role do you think the RCD is going to have with this?
Well, so as I say this, I hope I don't offend anybody watching this video. But I say this it's coming from conversations that I've had with RCDVs. And that is, so the folks who are specifying the projects, oftentimes the RCDDs I talk to, in fact, I had a long conversation with somebody about this on Friday. When they're looking at the specs that they're trying to bid on, it's a copy-paste, Copy paste. Copy paste
Oh, I hate that.
from the
And then
last 5 years.
from the no, from the project they did that was
Or-
similar 8 years ago, referencing standards that are no even longer
Yes.
valid anymore,
Yes.
and technologies we haven't used in years.
Yes. And in fact, this instance I'm thinking of the conversation I had Friday, through the whole document, it was talking about Cat 5e, Cat 5e, Cat 5e. And in the very last sentence, it said Cat 6a. And it was because they were just they weren't really writing the specification for the project. So my advice would be know your stuff, as everybody has pointed out. And I would say it's okay to push back. Another big piece of that spec is, this is a little self-fulfilling, but I'm going to say it, is what test equipment can be used. Again, it's been copied, pasted for years, and there's new equipment these days that is purpose-built for smart buildings, but it's not written into those specs. So one, push back. Two, if you happen to have our equipment or others that you really want to use and it's not written into that spec, push back and say why you want to use it. So that's one of the biggest things I'd say is it's okay, know your stuff, but it's okay to push back if you get a spec that you know is outdated.
Yeah, if I have one piece of advice to give that architect or that person who's doing the design before they submit the stuff to the RCDD for pricing, and Carol will love this, proofread your document. Enough said.
Well, you might.
Exactly. How do I can't go on. There it is right there. Ladies and gentlemen, what an exciting show. It's a first because I had so many people on. Second, new platform, and I'm going to love editing this thing tonight. This is going to be a good show. Thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate everybody here today.
Thanks for having
Thank you
me.
for the
Thank you,
invite.
Chuck. Yeah, thank you very much.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.